The cruelest thing a parent has ever done to you. This one is easy, sadly. My mother called Child Protective Services on me last year. Just because I wasn't talking to her. My world was turned upside down with one phone call. One day a sheriff came to my house. I was surprised because I'm not one to get into trouble or piss anyone off. He said he was there to check on mine and my children's welfare. I was confused. He said my mother had called and said I hadn't talked to her in over a year, my husband was abusive and holding me captive, and I was doing heroin and meth. I looked at him and said, "You've got to be kidding me." He assured me it was for real. I told him I spoke to her about 2 months ago, there's no ball and chain behind me, and I damn sure ain't doing heroin or meth. He actually laughed. I told him she's got issues and I don't want nothing to do with her. He said, "Well, you look healthy, you're not locked in a cellar, and your kids are at school where they should be, so I'll be on my way." I thanked him for his time and off he went. I was steaming pissed that day. I wondered what is wrong with that woman. Now I really won't talk to her. The next day, during the afternoon before the kids got home from school, there was a knock on the door. I opened the door and there is a sheriff and social worker. Dumbfounded, I ask if I can help them. They tell me someone has made a report to CPS and they're there to investigate. I was floored to say the least. So we sit down and the social worker begins to interrogate me. She then begins to list the allegations. She tells me I'm supposedly mentally ill, doing heroin and meth, being manipulated and abused by my husband, my children run around unsupervised, the kids aren't adequately cared for, etc. I broke down and sobbed in disbelief. I asked who made this report and was told it was anonymous. I knew by the heroin and meth and husband abusing me bit exactly who it was. The show had just begun. Another sheriff arrived shortly after. They asked if they can search my home. I said for what, and was told if I didn't consent they would take my kids away. Reluctantly, I said fine, I have nothing to hide. As the sheriffs are upstairs searching, I'm still being interrogated downstairs by the social worker. My husband arrived and was very upset about the situation, naturally. He's even more angry seeing me a mess in tears having to be asked appalling questions. Next thing you know, there's a knock at the door. Lo and behold, it's another sheriff. He waltzes in and I ask what the hell he's here for. The sheriffs come downstairs with an empty box that my husband had under our bed from a gun he purchased. They asked where the gun was and he replied it was in the car. They asked to see it and he refused. He's not a felon and it's registered and completely legal. That seemed to piss them off, but they had no grounds to take it or see it. So here we are. Sitting in the living room with the social worker and sheriff while another one is in the kitchen and one in the dining room. Why, I couldn't even tell you. The sheriff had a brown paper bag and said there was some evidence in it. He pulled out some pill bottles. He asked me what they were for. I told him I suffer from depression and anxiety. I also take